Welcome to the TikTok podcast. The clock is always ticking, so let's synchronize our watches and dive in. I'm your host, Callie Brigham, and I'm here to help you make time for what matters. Hey friends, welcome to a really fun and helpful Friday episode today. It's just one of those days where I'm like, this is going to be entertaining and informative, and you're going to leave this, however you're watching it, however you're listening to it, you're going to leave this experience going, oh, I needed that. And I feel so much better. So how's that for a little intro here today? Okay, so the deal is I belong to a community of fellow entrepreneurs and business women, and we support each other in all of the things, whether it's a tech question or whether it's a marketing idea. So when I knew that I wanted to expand some of my great guests and I wanted to expand some of the conversations and I wanted to dive into some areas that maybe I have a little bit of knowledge, but I know that there's people out there that they're the jam. They are the expert on it. And one area was coming into the idea of the fact that we have to feed our family all the dang time. Like lots of meals. I mean, they're always hungry. They want snacks. And it's not just about the function of feeding them, but everything that surrounds it. So I put out this little request, and this delightful and brilliant woman slipped into my DMs, and I was like, you're the girl. So we had a little chat over her spring break, and I was like, yes, sold. I am sold on Nikki. So I cannot wait to introduce you to this amazing girlfriend. She is a professional organizer, but don't get it twisted. Don't be like, oh, well, good for her. She's got it all figured out. She said to me, it might come as a surprise that someone like her who's organized pantries and closets and playrooms and kitchens for hundreds of people is not naturally organized. So now everyone breathes a sigh of relief and they say, okay, she's my girl too. So I'm really excited to welcome a fellow Floridian, a mama, Nikki Morley, to the show. Nikki, here you are.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I mean, like epic introduction. I'm excited to talk to me. So
well, we had such a great chat. We kind of do like this little pre-interview chat, and I never want it to last too long because I don't want to have all the goodness on the chat that's not recorded. But at the same time, I didn't want to stop talking to you. I was like, this is my kind of person. You're my kind of person, Nikki.
well, you are mine as well. So the feeling is totally mutual. So I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. And I think it's so appropriate if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that Nikki is in her kitchen because we're going to niche down today some of that organizing and we're going to get specialized. I sort of teased that because talked about food and feeding our family. So Nikki, you have a sweet spot, as I mentioned, especially when it comes to that area of your home, the kitchen, the pantry. What inspired? Like, tell us how this came to be and how you got inspired to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So funny story, not funny really, but when COVID hit, this was nowhere on my radar, but obviously like everyone else, we were trapped in our homes. And a coping mechanism seems to be like, okay, what can I fix? Like, what can I do better? So I was trying to kind of control what was happening in my home, and the area that we spend so much time, especially you can't see all of it, but like we have a very open floor plan house. So the kitchen is essentially the family room, the dining room, it is all connected. And this is where we did school. This is where we ate. This is where everything happened. And if it felt chaotic in the morning, it really just set the entire day off on like the wrong trajectory. And as a mom, that is exhausting when you're already trying to do all the other things. So I actually connected with a local girlfriend of mine, and she was feeling the same way. And we kind of were like, let's do something crazy. Let's start an organization business. I mean, all the kids aren't home, we're really homeschooling. Like, let's just start a business. It sounds like a great idea, right? I mean, but it was actually like the perfect distraction for everything else going on in the world. And we launched in September of 2020. And to say that there is such a need for help with organization couldn't be more of the truth. That first week, we had 18 people reach out and book consults, which is like, holy crap, like crazy. And we were just slammed continually from then on. So we had the privilege of going in and, organizing and doing design and doing all of these amazing things. And we joke, and this is kind of why, kitchens and pantries are one of my favorite places to do, is we say that getting your pantry organized is like the gateway drug. Like if you have your pantry organized, it is going to actually change your life so much that you're going to start thinking differently about organization and how much it truly does impact your life. And that doesn't mean it has to be, all these expensive, beautiful baskets. Simply the act of putting order into your pantry makes every single thing you do all day feel so much better, especially as moms, because to your point, we are literally feeding somebody 24/7, it feels like. So that's kind of how we got started, and it has been so fun. And it's been fun for me because I am not naturally organized, as we talked about, but I am very much able to step into the shoes of people who are struggling with, like, I don't know what to do, because I have that same inner struggle. So I can help create systems that make it simple for them to maintain.
Okay, I have this vision of a mom opening the pantry and like, right? Like the lights are bright, the angels are singing. And if she can have that moment in her home,
Yes.
how that spills the gateway drug.
I mean, we had clients that would text us the next day and be like, I just kept going and opening my pantry. I pondered sleeping in my pantry because I love it so much. And the crazy part is we would go back and do another space, and like 6 months later, a year later, their pantries for the most part are still in order. So it's not like it's something that, some novel thing. This is something you can actually do and maintain and consistently do into the future, which is just so awesome.
Okay, so if this has such importance, this is obviously the place to start. And, the thing is, I had another friend on who had helped me, ironically, during COVID. I mean, we were all going on, I called it a Corona coaster, right? We're on like the Corona coaster at the time. And one of the things she mentions is you don't have this sentimental attachment to the
Yes.
pantry. So you're not like sitting there holding your own, your grandma's sweater and then you get lost in it and then the whole day goes by. It's not as sentimental, so it's a good place to start. Okay,
100%.
so how do we start, especially for the girl who says she opens it and then she just wants to slam it shut? Like this is not where she feels confident.
So there's a couple pieces here. So the biggest thing to think about is, first of all, you need to take the shame and the guilt out of the fact that you have never been likely taught how to organize. So the fact that you cannot maintain and set up a pantry to be organized and stay organized, that is not a personal attack on you. That is just something you've never been taught. No surprise, you can't go do surgery on somebody. You are not a trained doctor. So I think that's something that I like to say, because that is a valid point that we all need to hear. You were never taught these things. So, you've just got to be like graceful with yourself in regards to that. So the biggest thing I think about is trying to start small. So don't think I am going to totally organize my entire pantry today. I've got an hour, I'm ready to do it. Like that is never going to happen. And that is going to absolutely set you up for failure. I personally would start even smaller than the pantry. I would do a drawer at a time. One drawer at a time. And a great place to start is your junk drawer. How much junk do you have in your drawer? I mean, let's be real. Set a 15-minute timer. This is one of my absolute favorite organization or decluttering hacks. Set a timer on your phone, turn on some music, and get to work. And then once you have that instant kind of like fix from doing one drawer, do another drawer the next day. and then do a little bit more. And as you continue to move through, you're building up confidence in your skill of how to organize. And just a couple of tips that I think are helpful, whether you are looking at a junk drawer or whether you are looking at a pantry. Ideal, perfect world, you need to fully empty the space. If you are not emptying everything out, you are going to miss that there's 5-year-old, water bottles shoved in the back. You are not going to be able to fully analyze your space. So if you are doing your pantry, you need to allocate enough time to thinking, how long is it going to take me to get everything out? Then I need to sort, put like things together, and then it has to go back in. And ideally, you want to label, because if you don't give everything a designated home, you're going to have a really hard time maintaining it, especially if you ever want help from anybody else in your home. You may know exactly where the spaghetti sauce goes, but your husband or child has no idea. So those are probably the biggest things I would say when you're getting started, is to just start small and be as graceful as possible with yourself. Because it is a skill you can absolutely learn, but you have to take the time to learn it.
Okay, so we start small, we get wins going, we've got the endorphins happening.
Yes.
Now we clear out everything. So how do you decide what goes back in? Like, how do you decide what you're going to keep, what you're going to give away? Who makes that decision? It's harder for some people than others.
It is really hard. And I think, and this is where there are some times where it is really helpful to bring a professional in, bring in a professional organizer if you can. If you can't, a great person to help too is your best friend. Like, take turns going to each other's house, because there's a lot of times where you're like, oh my God, I so have to save this water bottle. And your friend's like, you have 500 water bottles. This is sparkly, throw it away. But like, you need that other person there helping you with that. So the easiest way to pull things out is, first of all, look for things that are broken. Look for things that do not belong. So great example is, if your pantry, my pantry's in the kitchen, so it's often a catch-all. So sometimes I'll find, like, what did I find today? I found a kite in the pantry. Like, that's a very obvious, like, does not need to be here. Somebody shoved it in there for some reason. So remove things that are broken, expired, and do not belong. Those are the most important things to like remove from the space. Junk drawer is a great example. How many crazy, it's funny, we actually did a junk drawer event where everybody literally pulled their drawers out of their kitchen and brought them to a spot. We organized it together, and we did a contest to see what was the craziest thing you could find in a junk drawer. And it was absolutely hysterical. So those are kind of like the key starting points I would start with. And then from there, you try to group like items together. So, and they don't have to be like super narrow, depending on how your space is. Like, I like putting all meal stuff together, where I have my taco shells with my spaghetti sauce and my pasta. And then I have all of my baking stuff together. And then I have all of my oils together. So you just kind of have to see. Now, everybody functions very differently. That's where this is not like a one size fits all. I meal prep a ton, so I have a lot of preppy stuff, whereas somebody else may not, and they may have more snacks. So it's really just kind of like dividing those so that it makes sense when you're looking at your actual space.
Okay, let's take a little tangent here. As you were talking about meal prepping and putting things together, and I like to do that too. I have my little taco seasoning with my taco shells, with
Yes.
all together. Okay, good. Yay.
I mean,
Giving
that's
myself a little
win. I mean, that is, but like, if you're not meal prepping, that may not make sense. So like, you may not have a meals, or funny enough, we've actually done like a popcorn basket before for somebody. Like, they often do family movie nights, so they have all their stuff put together, or a s'mores basket. Like, if they always do that, but like, every family is so different. So you kind of have to figure out like what works for you and what works for your space.
I really like that idea, because I think that individualizes it for people, and it makes sense in your family. And if your family is on board with it, they're more likely to put something back where it belongs, so you don't have to do it all yourself. Okay, so but let's keep going with this idea of like meal planning and prep and all of that, because I know that you said this is, again, part of this organization in your kitchen, whether it's your fridge, your pantry, your space there. So tell us a little bit about the concepts that you have when it comes to recipe rotation, maintaining that kitchen when it comes to that. Let's go there.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to say before I kind of dove into meal prepping and meal planning, I absolutely hated mealtime. I hated cooking because I was doing it in a way that was super stressful. So if you are rolling your eyes at the idea of meal planning and meal prepping, I did that for so many years that I like kick myself now that I wish I had just tried it. Because had I tried it, I would have eliminated so much stress from my life. So I always wanted to preface it with that. Okay, so a couple of things that are key for me when I think about meal planning and prepping is, first of all, I take some time on the weekend when life feels a little bit less stressful, and that is when I do my meal plan. And one thing that has been incredibly helpful is a magnetic dry erase calendar that I literally write my meals on. I'm not talking crazy stuff here. Like, I'm not cooking 4-course meals. I am cooking a meat, a carb, or I guess a protein, a carb, and a vegetable 9 times out of 10. And if there's somebody that has, my son has a tree nut allergy. So like, and I'm gluten-free. So that makes it a little bit more challenging as we're doing meals. So I may have an almond flour tortilla and he may have like a regular tortilla, but it is essentially the same meal. And for me, taking the time to do that on the weekend and planning out what I have in my refrigerator already that I can use, and then bouncing that against my list, I can set up a grocery run. I prefer doing Kroger. I have it delivered to my house. You can do Walmart, you can do whatever, but if you have a meal rotation, which is what I have now, I have about a 2-week cycle where I am rotating meals on about a 2-week time period. Obviously, there are some exceptions to that. I literally have a shopping cart saved with those items that I need. So it takes every single piece of thought and decision fatigue out of it so that I am not stressed thinking about, oh God, what's for dinner tonight? The kids know, there is no question about it. And it is so much easier.
I started doing this as well. I'm trying to think. It's been a little while. It's been a little
Yeah.
while since I started to do it. You know what else I noticed is once I got into a rhythm, for example, for us on Sunday nights, we're saying, okay, what meals do we want for the week? And I keep it simple too, girl. It's got to be simple. And then we get our grocery pickup order on Mondays. But the other thing I found is it saves me throughout the week because the kids know we don't get groceries other days of the week. You know what I mean? Like, we don't get groceries on Wednesday. We don't get groceries on Friday. We get our groceries. So if you didn't put it on the list, then you're going to have to wait till next week to get it on the list. And that's been kind of a process too, as far as how much energy I have to put into it and think about it. It really minimized that for me. And it saved a lot of frustration, I think, and extra trips to the store and all that stuff too. So, okay, I love that. Now I'm going to get to Nikki.
That is
Yeah, go
also
ahead.
teaching your kids like the responsibility. And that's a piece that I feel like when I left my parents' home, like I had no idea. Oh my God, you have to cook 3 meals a day. Like, I feel like I am trying to train both my son and my daughter to recognize, like, this is not a restaurant. Like, there is a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. My son struggles with executive functioning a little bit. So one of the best things you can do if you have kids that have ADHD or executive functioning issues is have them create, and literally from step 1 all the way to eating, is have them do a recipe with you. One of our counselors said, like, that's the best thing you can do for executive functioning because it's showing them like following the steps, the importance of measuring, and it makes it so much more fun for the kids. So all in all, like, meal planning and prepping is a win for the whole family.
I love that point too. And by the way, our last Friday episode was with a psychotherapist who has ADHD. Her son has ADHD. She talked about executive functioning too. So I love how it's all intertwined. But you mentioned that you were not naturally organized. You didn't naturally meal plan really because it wasn't taught.
Mhm.
And now here you are modeling and teaching that to your kids. I just heard a child therapist say, we're not raising kids, we're raising adults. How great that the skills that you're just teaching us today maybe we weren't taught them as a kid, but now we can not only take them on ourselves, but we can pass them on so that our kids don't have to go through some of the chaos and frustration that we had too. Wow. Okay. So what other tips and areas do you want? We're really focusing in on the kitchen. We talked some about the pantry. Are there other areas that you see that tend to feel overwhelming or that you really need to give some attention to with your clients?
Yes. So I think in regards, especially like in the kitchen area, there are so many hot spots. And if you are, if you are like meal plan, meal prep curious, there's a lot of things you can do in regards to organization that will make that transition easier. One of the things I do is I actually decant stuff into my pantry. So I have I have glass canisters that have snacks in them, have pasta in them, have all of the whatever the item is, and it is clearly labeled. And the reason I prefer that, and I highly recommend it, not only is it beautiful, so aesthetically speaking, it is amazing. It is perfect for when you are doing your Sunday reset and you are trying to see what you are out of. I know with certainty, hey, we are out of the safe pasta for my son. I am out of the pretzels that he can eat. I am out of whatever it may be. When you are looking at if your children are older, one of the things I've shifted to in the last year is I decant all of those large bags of snacks. We don't buy a ton, but the ones I do buy, I decant. And I have trained the kids to grab a bowl, take a single scoop, and it eliminates that mindless eating that oftentimes kids do when they're like playing video games or watching TV or any of those things. And it's helpful as adults as well. So for me, decanting is always a win in the pantry, like without fail. So.
And I will tell you, because I like to get nice and personal on here too, one of the things I realized as I started to decant, which was also, I think, probably a pandemic deal where I just needed to be in control and whatever, went and got all these, pretty things to put stuff in. It also saves if you have an infestation of critters.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that there. I live on the beach. There's a lot of things that just like to come vacation here on the beach, little bugs and beach mice, whatever. But it also really makes sure that your items in your pantry don't get,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. And we all want to avoid that, right? That is like the last thing we want to deal with.
We do. Yeah. I would have had to throw out so many things, Nikki, because again, we just have a lot of little critters here and they like to burrow into things. And I thought, oh my word, I would have lost so much had I not had that in there.
I've been on the receiving end of that as well. And it is not a fun experience. So yes, that is 100% good. The other thing that I think is important is looking at your refrigerator. That is one area that I have a counter depth fridge, which means there is not a ton of space. So I have added bins and I have added turntables and I have actually labeled everything that's in the refrigerator as well. And why this tends to be helpful is my kids are on the older side, in the same range as yours. So they can easily know, hey, I can go get, and I tell them, fruit is good anytime. So I have different baskets that have fruit in it. I have different baskets that carry proteins. We are really focusing for everybody in the home on upping our protein intake. So, we keep beef jerkies and pepperonis and those kind of things and hummus. So it is all in a protein bin. You can also, if you are typically for us, we are a heavy, meal plan and meal prep. So we often have a leftover that is what is eaten for lunch the next day. So you can have a designated spot or a bin for your leftovers so that you're not digging around trying to see like, oh my God, where is my stuff at? The other thing that's incredibly helpful when you're thinking about your refrigerator or your freezer is when you put something in the freezer, have a note on your phone, like on your iPhone, that is called freezer, and put the date of what you're putting in along with the description. And then when it's time for I do schedule with meal planning and prepping, I do actually schedule like a leftover night. I can then go and see what's about to expire, go pull it from the freezer, because how many times have you had something and you're like, I slaved on this lasagna, but I forgot it was in the freezer and now I've got to throw it away, or meat or whatever it may be. So there are so many tips and tricks that you can incorporate into your life to make organization makes sense so that you're not only saving money, but you're saving time. It's just a matter of kind of thinking about it.
Okay, that one got a star on my little notes where I take that. A freezer note on my phone. I'm telling you, there is stuff buried in the bottom of the freezer. I have like a pull out, the
Yeah.
freezer part pulls out. And then we have like the middle drawer that has snacks
Mhm.
and stuff in it. But I never thought to actually, well, first of all, dig through my freezer and see what's buried in the back. And then you continue to buy. This is going to save you money too, because you continue to buy more stuff because you don't know what you already have. But if you do, then you can incorporate that in. Okay, freezer note. It's going to be a shared note too. So the husband knows what's in there. The kids know what's in there, right, Nikki?
That's absolutely what we do is it's shared so that, or if you're out, like it's a girls' night and you're like, oh gosh, what are we making for dinner? Like just flip to that. And as your kids are getting older and like they're preparing for themselves, I mean, it is a total win.
Okay. Any other ways that you incorporate your family into the things that we're talking about? So again, I feel like the same therapist that we heard from, he said the skills that a 2-year-old has, they really have the dexterity already and some of the verbal skills that starting at 2 years old, they should be able to do most everything that your family does. So I know, like we said, we have older kids, but for anybody listening, some of the other things, whether it is the organization or the meal planning or the prep, how else can we incorporate our family into some of these things?
Absolutely. Well, I think first of all, it is very dependent by child. I will say I have one child who is naturally organized, and I often wonder. I have no idea where she came from because that did not come from me. And then my son is more the way I am. He is creative and he's easily distracted, and he struggles with it a little bit more. So my daughter will actually, and I have involved both children as I'm doing things. So, hey guys, we're gonna go through and empty out the refrigerator or the freezer, and we're gonna pull everything, and let's see what kind of fun snacks or treats may be hidden in the freezer, because there's always popsicles or ice cream, who knows. So that is a good driver for my children to be involved. But it's funny, my daughter has taken it like totally like full force jumped in at 12. I will say 2 weekends ago, she was like, I'm kind of bored. Do you care if I organize the refrigerator? I'm like, yes, I have done so good. But I think it's just a function of integrating it into their everyday life. So when we get grocery deliveries, it's delivered to our door, and everyone goes and helps, and they carry it in. We set it on the counter. And because everything is labeled, everyone knows where everything goes. So we can not only do it faster, but it gets them involved. They understand. And, they also have specialized snack bins. Like, I've just really tried to think through what makes the most sense for the stage in life where we're at. And not everybody is at that stage. Like for us, snacks are at the bottom. We've organized homes before where like kids are young still and they need their snacks out of reach. So like you put your snacks up high. So it's really just a function of trying to think of how you can pull your kids in. And I will say most children are very food and drink motivated. So that is always, to me, that's always a great way to do it.
When my kids were younger, Nikki, on the bottom shelf in our pantry, we had a few plastic plates, a few plastic cups, some things like that that were within their reach. Because I remember my brother-in-law saying to my husband and I, there will come a Saturday morning where they let you sleep in, because if they can know where their plate is, their cup is, they can get some food and they watch cartoons and you get to sleep in. I remember thinking, is that day ever coming? But yeah, so we placed things where they had access to them, and it just made sense at the time. Now, I'll again be honest, there's still some plastic plates and cups down low that probably don't need to be there in my pantry like that anymore, because they're 13 and 15 and taller than me and they can reach anything. So, all right, I'm taking note. We're going to have a family pantry haul. We're going to pull it all out, right, Nikki?
I mean, but here's the thing, like if that's working and that's what they're used to, and there's plenty of space and they can reach everything, then there's something to be said for that. We do actually have a bin at the bottom that's called paper. And that is where I put all of our, like anytime we have birthday parties or any of that stuff, any of the extras go in there. And those are the plates kids use, if it's like, hey, I'm warming up a piece of pizza or whatever it may be. And that works for us. So, don't knock it, but you do, especially with kids, there are seasons of life where you have to go through and reassess, because what worked for you 2 years ago may not be what's working for you now. So there is opportunity for enhancement there.
That is true. I do have a little basket that has paper products in it down the bottom. That's really more where they're reaching for anyways. Okay, any other unique, interesting, I love how your brain thinks. Bins or areas or regions that you have in your pantry or your fridge or your kitchen that can just trigger us to have that thought, as we are now literally everyone's going to be scanning their kitchen and going, okay, how can I Nickify my kitchen today?
I may have to coin that phrase. That's awesome.
Do it.
Okay, so for me, because I am a meal planning and meal prepping, I actually decanted all of my spices as well. So I bought $30 glass jars that come with labels on Amazon, and I decanted all of my spices because I swear every single time I decide it's a Sunday, I want to try a new recipe, I'm like, oh, do I have, Italian oregano? I'm like, oh, I don't have it. I go buy it. And then I get home and I'm like, oh, I do have it. And now I've got 2 of these that I'm never going to use. So for me, that has been one that is amazing. It is actually center shelf of my pantry on a very pretty wooden shelf. It looks beautiful, but ultimately for me, I know exactly where everything is. I know where all my spices are, and I can easily get to them. And as I'm meal planning and meal prepping, I keep it alphabetized. Hey, I'm making this new, shrimp pad thai. I need whatever it may be. I go check the spices and I go check my oil bin to see if I have fish sauce or whatever it is I need. So it is absolutely saving me money and saving me time. So that is a huge, but again, that's specific to if you're meal planning, if you like cooking, if you all those things. If you don't, and you're heavy on snacks, one thing that I've seen is, you can put snacks on a turntable if it fits better for you, or you can put them, you don't have to stop, you don't have to stand them up. They don't have to be aesthetically pleasing. Like you can have like a free for all snack bin for your kids. And these are the safe snacks. Like these are the snacks you can eat as much as you want of, versus maybe the fruit roll-ups that are like the special ones. So like designate and be very clear about that with your kids. The other thing that has been really helpful in our pantry is, and we have a small pantry for, 5 people living here. It's a very small pantry. Use the vertical space. So we have a door that opens. So, put a Elfa from the Container Store. We actually put command hooks on it, and that is where my kids' lunchboxes hang. And we space them so that they can be open. So A, they air out, but B, it also teaches the kids, hey, when you come home, first thing you do is you go hang your backpack in the drop zone. You go empty your lunchbox. You rinse out all your, we still pack lunches. You rinse out whatever food storage containers you have, and then you hang your lunchbox on the pantry door. So anytime I open the door, I can see who has done what they were supposed to and who is ready, so that my morning is not crazy yelling, hey, why don't you have lunches ready? It also lets the lunch boxes air out. I mean, it is just an absolute win. And it's literally just putting command hooks on your door.
All right. Yeah. You know who you have to go after if their lunchbox is not hanging up there, right? It's usually probably the same kid too.
Always.
Always the same kid. Okay. I love that. Nikki, I think I'm going to have you back, and we're going to do like another region next time. Okay. Like I know this one is really important, but I just love the little life hacks that you have that anybody can do based on, again, their circumstances and what works for them. And one thing I'm going to mention, I'm going to have you take some pictures of the things like the decanters that you have, because we'll post them in our TikTok tribe. The link is in our community, our show notes, the community is in there, because I know some people are visual and this will really help them. All right. So goodness, if somebody is still listening and they're like, all right, Nikki, give me your best piece of advice. Like, I do want to do this. I might feel a little overwhelmed or not sure where to begin, but I know it's time. It's time that I tackle this. It's time that I do this. What advice would you give that listener today?
Absolutely. I think the first thing is, again, even as a professional organizer, it is normal to feel overwhelmed. It is normal to feel overwhelmed at the prospect of doing this and at the clutter, at what feels like chaos in your home. So like recognize that and call it out. Like just say it. Like feel free to say it to yourself. Like I feel really overwhelmed with all of my stuff. And I feel overwhelmed at the prospect of having to organize all my stuff. And something about saying that out loud, I swear, just feels better. And then make a commitment to yourself that you're going to put in 15 minutes a day. You're going to set that timer. And if you want to have fun with it and get your family involved, have them do the same thing in their room. Have them go through their toys or through the playroom or whatever it may be, or go through their backpacks. I mean, my kids could take 30 minutes on their backpacks. But I think the most important thing is start small so that you don't have that overwhelmed feeling. And if you're unsure of what to do, there's no hard answer. There's no like, you have to do this. You have to decant in your pantry. You have to use velvet hangers in your closet. If you love wood hangers, put wood hangers in your closet. Like, you have to find what works for you and really focus on that. But I think the 15-minute timer is the way to go so that you are never getting overwhelmed. And then the other thing is, there are so many resources out there. I am a huge sharer of all of my tips and tricks and life hacks and all the things, as are so many other people. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. So take it with a grain of salt. Do what works for you. Don't feel like your home has to be 100% aesthetically pleasing either. It has to function before anything else.
You know, I appreciate that you said that. And on that mindset path, what have you seen with some of your clients? What mindset shifts when they do have a system? When they, because, you know, as we wrap up our conversation, I want people to know the end goal. The end game of this
Mm-hmm.
is not just to have everything so sterile that, you know, you don't care if your mother-in-law comes over, it's fine. She can open your pantry. It's more like, what are we aiming for in this? What emotion have you seen attached to people when they finally go ahead and bite the bullet, get some things organized?
Yeah. So I think, to your point, it's not about having a perfect space. It is about having a space that doesn't overwhelm you and doesn't stress you out, a space that you can breathe in, a space that brings you calm, and a space that gives you freedom to do the things that you want to do with your family, the hobbies you want to do, so that you're not feeling weighted down by the chaos and the clutter in your home. And that is ultimately the end goal. It's not to have, you know, a Pinterest worthy pantry. It is to have that feeling inside of you of, I can breathe. And I think if you keep in alignment with that as you're going through the process, that feels good. And that's going to motivate you to move further towards making that progress day by day. And it's, you know, there's times where it is not easy. The kitchen is a great place to start. You know, like going through, you know, a playroom has been hard for me. Like, my kids' toys are a really hard one because they are getting older. And I have memories attached to all of those toys. I don't think they do. So that is a really hard one to me. And I have personally held on to a lot more stuff than probably is needed for that reason. But, you know, I'll get there. It's a constant work in progress.
Mm. That's a great perspective and a really healthy reminder. At the end of the day, what is this all for? And the purpose is to have more time, more energy, more peace when it comes to the things that we love to do and the people that we love to do them with. Well, Nikki, this has been tremendously helpful. I'm so grateful for you. And so because of that, I have a pretend gift. And my pretend gift is the gift of a pretend bonus hour. So if I were to give you this extra 60 minutes, you can do with it whatever you choose. What would you do with your bonus hour?
Yes. So obviously I'm a Florida girl, and something about having my family at the beach, I will almost always choose that if given the opportunity. I don't care if it's hot. I don't care if it's cold. Something about the grounding of being at the beach and the waves and with the family, that is almost always what I'm going to pick. So that would probably be it.
Well, as I'm sure you can guess, I could not agree with you more. And so my prayer is that within this next week or two that you would be able to find that hour, spend it with your family, Send me a picture of you and your family at the beach. It will make me so happy.
We actually just did sunrise. That was my daughter's, she had her 12th birthday sleepover. The only thing she wanted as our activity was she wanted all her friends to go do sunrise at the beach. So 6:30 in the morning, we left the house to go hit sunrise. And it was, it's just, I gave myself a mental high five. I said, you did good. You taught her that the important thing here is like time with her friends, that watching the sunrise, having an experience. So
wow. What a cool chick she is. I love it. And what a great mama she has. Nikki, thank you so much. And for people that want to connect more with you, we'll put this in the show notes. How and where can they find you?
Absolutely. So I am one of the few that I love social media. So I am always very loud and very vocal. So there are 2 places you can find me. I have one account, which is called She Loves Order, and that is a little bit more geared towards professional organizers. And I have a new account, which is called She Loves Joy, but it's spelt French, joie. And that is where I show up with lots and lots of tips and tricks and hacks. And I love helping people. So if you guys have specific questions about how do I do this space, feel free to hit me up in the messages. And I am absolutely happy to, record a reel and send you all the good tips I have.
Oh, perfect. Okay, we're going to learn so much more from you as we connect with you. All that's going to be in the show notes for you guys. You can just click there, follow Nikki, and just have some great peace in your spaces. So thank you, Nikki. You were amazing, girl.
Talking to you. It was so fun.
I love it. Well, thanks you guys for listening. We will have even more great conversations to come. And in the meantime, go pull out that junk drawer, start somewhere, and God bless you. See you next time. Thank you for joining me on the TikTok podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a 5-star review. Your feedback fuels our mission to help you master your time. Set your alarm for our next episode, and until then, make every moment count.